Hi, Galaxy. Take 5. Hi, Guardians of the Galaxy. Take 300. Hi, Guardians of the Galaxy lovers. I'm still Skip Haynes.
And I'm still Arthur Belkind, and we're back to tell you about the actual making of Lakeshore Drive, what happened in the recording session, which is the reason that we're here today. If it weren't for this recording session, Lakeshore Drive would never have been made and never would have been the hit song that it is in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
We recorded Lakeshore Drive, or LSD as we like to call it, at Paragon Recording Studios in Chicago, which was on the 4th floor. It was a great studio, but it was a hike. And I don't know how Arthur put this together, but the people that played on this session, this was a very special studio. Marty Feldman, the guy that owned the studio, had an obsession on obtaining the best of everything. For example, for all you technophobes out there, the reverb plates. Reverb is what makes records. And the better your reverb is, the better the record is. It gives a transparency to the music. And Marty's had 2 8-foot square reverb plates in the basement of a church across the street. And he ran cables under the street. So right at the get-go, this recording was ahead of most recordings technically in the United States. The piano part that Jeremiah played on it, the iconic piano part, was played on a Baldwin grand piano. Baldwin grand pianos are not used a lot. Usually it's Steinways or Bosendorfers, but Marty had probably the best Baldwin grand piano available in that studio. And that instrument gave Jeremiah's piano part the signature sound that it has, and you can really tell the difference if you hear the part played on a different instrument. The drummer was a guy named Tom Radke, who was probably one of the best drummers in the United States. He would never have deigned to play with us. You just paid him. Smoked a pipe. I mean, you know, but he came up with the drum parts. A guy named Bobby Schiff arranged the song. It's one thing to write a song, it's another thing to arrange the song, and that's what makes hits. If you get the right arrangement for the right song, people are going to like it.
And Barry Mraz, the engineer.
And Barry Mraz, the engineer, was one of the best engineers in the United States. We were totally clueless. The band had no idea. We also, or Arthur, also hired a string section from the Chicago Symphony, and it was one of the first times a local band had ever had symphony strings. And I remember in the session when Mitch Allione and I were in the studio and we saw these classical musicians coming in carrying their violin and viola cases, and we went, whoa, these are real musicians that are going to play our music.
Actually, you thought they were gangsters in the 20s with machine guns.
Well, they kind of looked like that. And after we got them all drunk on tequila, we found out that when they were coming into the studio, they were going, wow, we're going to play on a rock album. This is so cool. So they were hired to play the string pads for Lakeshore Drive and the
other side of Lakeshore Drive,
which was called Snow Queen.
Snow Queen.
LSD and Snow Queen, yes. Yeah. And after we did the parts, the lead violinist, the guy who did the sessions, whose name was Joe Golan, he was the first chair Chicago Symphony, he just stuck around at the session.
See, now, I always thought it was Islatov Mirsky.
No, it was Joe Golan. It was Joe Golan.
Islatov
I'm sure.
Mirsky
I know
like
it's Joe
because
he bitched about getting paid $100 for this session for 25 years. But so he stuck around. It was the only time he'd ever been drunk in his life. Never before, never after. And it was kind of like the producer. This producer was a guy named Scott Gibbs, who produced Blackhawk games on television.
Hockey.
Never produced hockey yet.
It wasn't easy to get him.
I'm sure. And he never produced a record before that or after that. So this was kind of a thing that was happening. And after we got the song done, Joe kept hanging around the studio just listening to it. And we were listening to a rough final mix, and somebody went, hey, man, we forgot to put a solo in.
Now, wasn't everybody kind of lying on the floor at this time?
Well, yeah, because that was a holdover from the Rotary Connection, because they used to lie on the floor in the studio to listen to playback. So everybody would do lie down on the floor and listening to playbacks. And we realized we were a little too buzzed, and we had forgotten to put a solo in. And it was too late. Everybody had left. But there was a long tag on the end of the song. And Joe stepped up and went, "Excuse me? Can I try something?" And he walked into the studio and ripped off the most amazing violin solo you ever heard, came out, said, "Thank you very much," and left. And that's how the song was recorded.
Stay tuned, because next week we are going to introduce you to Snow Queen.
Great.